All right, the oceans are quite literally the arteries of global trade. Historically, whoever controls these maritime choke points basically dictates the rules of the 21st century. In this explainer, we're diving into an absolute masterclass in global logistics. We're going to unpack how one nation is quietly transforming standard commercial shipping docks into the ultimate geopolitical power play.
So why exactly is China spending a staggering $60 billion to essentially buy up the world's oceans? Well, to understand that, we have to start with a terrifying vulnerability of scale and a literal crisis of survival.
Look, China currently holds roughly 18% of the global population. We're talking about over 1 billion people. And while that demographic weight is incredibly massive, it is only half the story when you actually look under the hood of their economy.
And here is the terrifying catch. They produce an absolutely wild 30% of the world's goods. This massive discrepancy means that even if every single citizen bought goods at a frantic pace, they could just never consume the sheer mountains of electric vehicles, tech, and appliances pouring out of their factories. If they can't export this volume, the factories close up shop and the whole economy faces an existential threat.
Which brings us to part 1, the export survival problem.
To solve this crushing overcapacity crisis, Beijing didn't roll out the military to open trade routes. Nope, they deployed capital. An estimated $60 billion was unleashed across nearly 130 global port projects in just a single decade. They went from being a total latecomer to quietly controlling the most crucial nodes of global trade.
Instead of firing bullets, they used a completely ruthless financial playbook with 3 main tactics. First, outright acquisition. Just buying it, like dropping $1.5 billion for a majority stake in Greece's Piraeus port. Second, leveraging debt, like securing a wild 99-year lease for Sri Lanka's Hambantota port when infrastructure loans couldn't be repaid. And third, well, if a port doesn't exist, they literally just build a megaport from scratch, exactly like they did in Chanquet, Peru.
But you've got to understand, these aren't just standalone docks. They are meticulously planned economic fortresses. It's a closed-loop ecosystem. The strategy is to connect resource-rich inland mines through dedicated railway networks straight to their self-operated ports. It creates this seamless, uninterrupted pipeline feeding directly back into the mainland's industrial machine. And this independent network, it provides unbelievable resilience. Just look at the 2024 Red Sea crisis. Western shipping costs spiked by 300% as their ships were forced into these massive detours. Meanwhile, Chinese cargo ships sailed on relatively unbothered. They just used their self-controlled African network to keep supply chains moving while all their competitors panicked.
Now, moving on to part 2, bypassing the Malacca dilemma.
See, mastering global logistics is also about escaping a strategic nightmare. Securing exports is only one side of the coin, securing energy imports is the other. A staggering 80% of China's imported oil has to pass through a single, extremely narrow geographic choke point, the Strait of Malacca. It is literally the jugular vein of their entire economy.
So let's pause and really ask ourselves, what happens if a major conflict breaks out? If rival powers blockade that narrow strait, how fast does the world's factory completely run out of energy? It is a fatal weakness, and solving it required some of the most ambitious engineering on the planet.
The solution? Absolute architectural brilliance. They've funded deep-water ports like Gwadar in Pakistan and Kakphu in Myanmar. But here's the trick. These aren't just shipping hubs. They actually act as secret escape tunnels. Oil and resources are offloaded there and piped directly overland right into China via cross-border rail and pipelines, totally bypassing that Malacca chokehold.
Which brings us to the most fascinating piece of the puzzle, part 3, the hidden naval strategy.
Because you see, this economic masterclass hides a highly concealed secondary purpose. A standard commercial cargo port normally only needs a depth of about 10 to 12 meters and a length of maybe 200 meters. Yet many of these Chinese-funded ports are deliberately, heavily over-engineered. They're dredged down to 15 or 20 meters deep, with berths stretched out to nearly 400 meters long. So why spend all that extra capital to build larger than commercially necessary?
It's because they are building this massive excess capacity specifically to accommodate military titans. Take the Chinese Navy's Fujian aircraft carrier, for example. That thing is 316 meters long and weighs over 80,000 tons. These artificially deepened ports ensure that these absolute steel leviathans never run aground, essentially hiding repair docks and massive fuel storage right behind everyday commercial shipping containers.
And as the 2025 Pentagon report explicitly called out, this is a calculated effort to allow the PLA to sustain military power globally. It is the ultimate dual-use Trojan horse. In peacetime, these ports are massive money-printing logistical hubs, but if a conflict ever erupts, they can instantly transform into forward operating bases, allowing the Chinese Navy to project power thousands of miles away from home without ever needing to return to base.
All right, that leads us into Part 4, the global infrastructure war.
For years, the West completely missed this dual-use reality. They just viewed this massive influx of cash as standard commercial investment. But now, the alarm bells are loudly ringing, and a coordinated counteroffensive is unfolding. The U.S. intelligence community forced the immediate suspension of a secret military facility at the UAE's Khalifa port. Over in Europe, Germany erected legal shields capping the Chinese state-owned company COSCO's stake in the Hamburg port to a non-controlling 25%. And India successfully pressured Sri Lanka to absolutely ban Chinese warships from docking in its backyard.
But the tension is rapidly escalating. Right now, Washington is terrified of developments in Equatorial Guinea, which is a tiny nation in West Africa. Beijing is negotiating for a port there, which would effectively give Chinese warships a direct launch pad into the Atlantic Ocean. The U.S. sees this as a literal dagger pointed straight at their own shores, and they're pulling every diplomatic lever they have to stop it.
The West finally realizes that simply playing defense just isn't enough anymore. Developing nations need capital, so they're fighting fire with fire. The G7 launched the PGDI to mobilize hundreds of billions in counterfunding. They are aggressively investing in the Libido corridor in Central Africa just to secure critical minerals. And they've completely drawn up the IMEC corridor, a massive Middle East to Europe network explicitly designed without a single drop of Chinese capital. They are literally trying to rewrite the shipping lanes themselves.
So, the battle for the world's ports has truly become the most fiercely contested geopolitical struggle of the 21st century. It's not just about money, folks. It is about the ultimate levers of global control. As the map of global power is being aggressively redrawn right before our very eyes, we really have to ask, in a new world order, who truly rules? The one who makes the goods or the one who controls the ports?